Joe Reinagle, Jason Minix, The Blitz.
Today, the Bexar County Commissioners voted 4-1 to let the Spurs play 4 home games away from the AT&T Center. Not a surprise at all. After 2 weeks ago, they voted 3-2 for preliminary approval to be able to do that on a 1-year plan. The one no vote was County Commissioner Tommy Calvert. It's the Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star. He is Joe Reinagle. I'm Jason Minix, and Tommy Calvert is joining us now. Busy day for you, as always, I'm sure. Tell us what went down today at Commissioner's Court.
Well, it's great to be on with you and Joe. Thanks so much, Jason. It was, it was a vote to really be pro San Antonio in my no vote, but the court has now authorized 2 additional games that can be played at home. And what that means is that the home team, when they're away, can receive the revenue from that away area. So if they're in Mexico City and they want to add some additional home games, they can do that. If they're in Austin, they can do that as well. That's basically what the court authorized today.
You know, Tommy, it's interesting that how this whole thing has played out. First of all, it kind of hit, I think, Spurs fans out of the clear blue sky that they were even suggesting this and you guys were going to vote on it. And then the vote came down. It seemed like Judge Wolf was a little unhappy with the Spurs at that time. But then the letter from Peter J. Holt comes out, and that seemed to change everything. And not to be cynical, but we've seen letters like that before. What are you guys talking about? Are y'all trusting the Holt family on this, that they're going to stay put?
Well, Joe, first of all, I'm talking to my constituents first, and I've talked to everyone from CEOs to the guys at the retail stores to the lawnmower man to lobbyists inside, and they agree with my vote of making not additional games go to other cities. So a lot of people think it's testing the waters. Look, the most important thing for us going forward is to show some love to the Spurs, some more love to the Spurs, because the taxpayers have already put in $300+ million into the AT&T Coliseum grounds. But I think that showing the love means a new vision where we develop parking garages with housing on top, retail, office, restaurants, so that you can go before and after the game, and give the Spurs ownership first dibs at the ownership equity in that new housing and restaurants and retail. And we take the golf course, Willow Springs Golf Course, and we develop it by an $80 million channel that could channel water out so it's not in a floodplain. You can develop housing, restaurant, retail. I think in the future, the Spurs are going to go to the city and county for money and a bond. And I think the only way that it passes is if the average working person, let's say 70% of the working folks, can actually afford the apartments, condos, or whatever that are developed. I think if we do that, it shows the real heart of San Antonio to do things differently than some of the other cities where people were displaced. It's particularly important at a time that the average housing cost, and Joe, you're in a real estate, so you know this, $311,000 average price. It's getting out of the reach of so many San Antonians, and that American dream is important to keep going. And the county and the city, with the Spurs and the rodeo, believe it or not, through sports and development, we can all be a part of that.
Tommy Calvert, County Commissioner, joining us here on the Blitz on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250 and 103.3 FM. With the vote today of 4-1, they'll have the 4 games out of the AT&T Center, 2 in Austin, 1 in Mexico City, 1 in the Alamo Dome as they celebrate their 50th anniversary. And Tommy, you mentioned it, and I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago and talked about it here on the radio and wrote about it at sasportsstar.com. I don't think the Spurs are going anywhere for now. And I know the mayor and the judge put out the statement that it was a heartfelt statement from Peter J. Holt. It's laying the groundwork for when they do want a new building. What I'm hearing you say right now is, I don't know about a new arena for them to play in, but we need to build up that area. Would that be enough to anchor the Spurs for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years?
Well, I think it should be. When, some of the behind the scenes conversations revolved around consultants who said that they should move from the east side and the AT&T Center because there wasn't the density. And what I pulled out to the Spurs management was a map of my precinct and showing that I put new sewer all along the East Central school district area, and there's thousands and thousands of new homes that are going to come up. There's 1.5 million people moving to Bexar County in the next dozen years, and they're not going to all live on the north side. A lot of them are going to be in the East Central, just down Houston Street and 410. And so what I said is that you can't, an out-of-town consultant couldn't tell you that. But by having conversations with leadership that is making things happen, you can know and actually see the permits and the developers that are going to be building homes from $200,000 to $750,000 right down the street. And in that way, you have to envision the Bexar County not as the county of 2 million people, but the county of 3.4 million people. And that is going to happen in the next dozen or so years.
Tommy, I'm so happy to hear you say that and that you are looking forward to try and do something out there. I'm old enough to remember when the AT&T Center was built, and it was built on the promise that, you know, it was going to be an entertainment area where people could go to the basketball game and then have dinner and maybe a few drinks here and there. Is that ever going to come to fruition? Is that a possibility where the AT&T Center sits right now?
Well, you can see that, you know, when I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but since I've become commissioner in 2014, the east side has really begun to improve and come up. And a lot of folks, when I campaigned, said, we want to see the same kind of retail that you have at 281 and 1604 La Cantera, Brook City Base. And what I had to explain was that retail follows rooftops. And when the retailers and the restaurants and things looked at the consumer, the census tracts in the Near East Side had average income at $17,000. So what did I have to do? I had to bring the middle class back. Now, we do have an issue with displacement, that we need more policy at the county because we don't have a workforce housing policy at the county. We need to do that and join the city and help incentivize and lower construction costs so that we can have it where a person's only spending 30% of their income on their rent or their mortgage. Right now, a lot of San Antonians are spending 50 and 60% of their income on rent or mortgage. So we've begun to bring the middle class back. You see what's happening at the Red Berry Mansion. So you have this sandwich of opportunity that comes from the East Central China Grove area into the Vidora and the Dignowity Hill, and you have this opportunity to build the parking garages and housing and restaurants and office space like Victory Park and LA Live. That's the vision that I'm trying to get for the AT&T and Coliseum grounds. Have the
Spurs asked you guys yet, or has the conversation started on either a new building for the Spurs, a new arena, or I know there was just a lot of money spent on renovations, but where is the talk right now? Because it's hard to believe the arena is already 20 years old. At what point do they ask for a new arena and have those conversations started in the preliminary phases, at least?
No, they haven't. But I think that their mouthpiece was the publisher of the San Antonio Express-News, of course, when he put that out in an editorial a couple of days ago. So I think that was the primer. So, you know, whether the Spurs go in the La Cantera property that the city and the county invested a lot of funding in, or whether they go in the AT&T Coliseum grounds, I'm a Bexar County nationalist, and I want to make sure it doesn't go to Austin or San Marcos. I want it right here in San Antonio.
Well, I love to hear you say that. The one question I have, too, because we've been waiting for it, and I don't know if the commissioners have anything to do with this. Please educate me if you would, Tommy, but the naming rights for the AT&T Center, we heard it was going to change. It was going to be something different, but yet it's still the AT&T Center.
Yeah, it's not going to be the Fred Fish Fry Center.
That's too bad.
Did you tell Fred yet? Did you break the news?
Yeah, I think we're all looking to what the naming rights are going to be. I haven't inquired into that, but it is something that's very important. And you know, I think we all have to have a conversation if it becomes the Dell Center and there's not that Dell influence here. I mean, but you know, we want to try and help because there's new money, there's new corporations, there's new people, and I think that we need to have a search for the newer, younger money, just like when Red McCombs went out to Lowry Mays and Clear Channel and some of these other corporate entities and rounded up McDermott and some of the other investors, we've got to have that same kind of rejuvenated effort so that the ownership group has San Antonio's best interest at heart. And today I've been thinking about the equity piece that the city and the county could actually have as a play to Bigfoot a billionaire out of here. And so I'm going to do a little research with the county manager. If push comes to shove, how much equity could the city and the county pony up to keep an outside bid from taking the Spurs?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's keep us posted on that. Tommy Calvert, County Commissioner, joining us here on the Blitz. And I think about the conversations that you're a part of that all of us want to know answers to, and you bring up Dell. And I think if they would have said, hey, we want to play a couple of games to expand the brand, we're going to go play a game in Corpus, we're going to Laredo, we're going to Mexico City, I don't think any of us give a damn, right? It's Austin.
Correct.
Right? They're not going to
right.
go play in the Moody Center. We know that it's not big enough. But when you look at all the tech that has gone into Austin, and where a lot of about 30% of the ownership group being based in Austin, they just seem like a real threat to get our Spurs, which I think is where the uproar and the concern came from. When you talk about naming rights, and you mentioned Dell, how much of a concern is there when you're talking to Spurs officials about the corporate dollars that they need to stay competitive in the NBA?
Yeah, it's always a business, right? So it's the entertainment business, 90% business, 10% entertainment. And I think the goal for me as a civic leader is to make sure that Austin isn't San Francisco and San Antonio isn't Oakland. What I'd really like to try to bring is a Miami, where Austin's like Miami and San Antonio is like Miami, if you will. We're being both world-class juggernauts, but we can maintain and grow our corporate base, and I think we can do that. Some of the old guard just kind of has to get the shackles off and let some of the new younger leadership. I think Peter John Holt is a breath of fresh air as well as a leader. So I think there's going to be some interesting dynamics, but they're in a position where both cities are competing. Commissioners in Travis County and Bexar County talk, and I know a few things that are going on in Travis County. So I'm going to be as competitive as possible, and I will not let any county or city outbid San Antonio.
Tommy, I'll ask you a question straight up as I hear you say that. Why is Austin getting all the big companies coming in there and those headquarters aren't moving to San Antonio?
I think it's nightlife, brother. To be perfectly honest, I think people have a damn good time when they're in Austin. And, I used to I was a men's play-by-play announcer for the Tufts men's basketball, but I also had a dating show at Tufts television station too. And I remember analyzing, why is the dating scene so different in San Antonio than other cities? And I think we've often been segregated by education levels, and cliques begin to happen when you're in a place like Austin or other big cities. I think everyone either assumes you're a young professional or a college student. You're all in the same boat, going the same direction. We've had a lot of separation with folks, and I think our nightlife has suffered. So when corporate leaders visit Austin, they have a really good time, whether they're going to Lake Travis or whatever. So, as a guy whose pops was in the entertainment business, we did concerts growing up and stuff like that. I think we've got to do some work on that. That's why I pushed the Thompson and Arts residence. I'm working on the Dream Hotel, $450 million development to try to have rooftop bars and so on and so forth. But part of it is also disposable income. The wonky side of me says San Antonio for ticket sales is a walk-up town. And what that means is that because people don't have a lot of disposable income, they decide the day of if they have enough income to purchase a ticket. So when we do things like have housing policy where people can actually save so that they have disposable income, they're only using 30% rather than 50% on housing, that goes a long way in improving everything people whine about, which is why don't we have the concerts and entertainment? Why don't we have the flights that come here? It's all about disposable income, and we got to improve that through education, job training, and a lot of the things that the elected leaders need to get busy on.
Tommy, I knew I liked you for a reason. One former TV guy to another. I kind of like that. That's awesome. I knew we had something in common there.
Hidden talents, brother. Chris was not hidden.
Tommy, how much do the commissioners and the city government work together. Are you guys in unison with most of the things that are being done here in the city?
Well, I think the county judge and the mayor have an extremely strong working relationship. I work with the council people. I represent District 1, 2, 3, and 10, and then 13 other cities. And we work very well together. But I think that there can be greater collaboration. There will have to be. And I've been thinking about that. It's the right question to ask. When I think about how do we play offense and defense against cities trying to buy the Spurs, and we've got to work together. So I think that conversation's beginning, and I think it's only going to strengthen.
Tommy Calvert, County Commissioner, joining us here on the Blitz after the Commissioners Court voted 4-1 today to let them play 4 home games outside of the AT&T Center. Tommy, you mentioned conversations with Peter J. Holt. I've heard him doing some things on social media. Every time we've requested to get him on this show, they politely decline. So it's hard to gauge, and I think a lot of Spurs fans have a hard time trying to figure out who he is. You know, his dad did a lot of media back in the day. You see a Jerry Jones, you see different team leaders all across every league with their ownership group or management group out in the media. We don't get that from the Spurs, which isn't new. But with a new guy in charge and Peter J. Holt, I think there's a lot of fans out there, and I'll raise my hand in this. I'm just not sure about this guy because I don't know him. I don't see him. We don't hear from him other than as the mayor and the judge called it, that heartfelt statement that he put out. What's the guy like?
Well, I've had the good fortune. We both went to St. Mary's Hall, and his sister went there as well. And I'm older than they are. But I know they're a good family, good folks. He's smart. He is articulate. And, you know, some people don't really have that knack for wanting to be public. It seems like they want to play a more private role. But I do think he's coming and changing that. I know that in 8 years, I want to have the conversation with him about the plans we've talked about earlier to develop the area. And I, for the first time in 8 years, got a chance to have a really good conversation. I think it was healthy for both of us. So if my conversation is in the indication, and his tweet and his letter to the fans is any indication, I think they're going to be a bit more communicative, but I think they're very measured, frankly, because of something that happened in 1999 where the ownership got burned. And I'm just gonna tell you this story in 20 seconds. Back when the arena agreement between the county commissioners and the Spurs was announced, the deal was supposed to be the county develops the AT&T and the area around it, but the Spurs run the Spurs payroll. Well, one of the commissioners got out in the press conference and said, the county is going to build the arena and the Spurs are going to do the economic development. And I think they all went white-faced and were like, holy crap. So they've been very tight-lipped with elected officials culturally at the top level. There's a lot of mid-management and upper management that we deal with. But, I think it'll be healthy for us to engage in these conversations, and I think it's going to get better. And, I'm sure a lot of the Spurs personnel are listening to this interview, and I'm sure when Mr. Holt's ready, he'll give some more interviews. I'll tell him to come on the show. I'm a big fan.
But appreciate that.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
I mean, it's not like we're coming down here to blow them up.
No, we won't bite
that's
him,
not
I
the way
promise.
you've been listening to the show a long time. That's not the way we do things.
Yeah, we're going to show the Spurs love. My whole thing, you saw how nice I was in court. I mean, people know I can be a pit bull. Maybe my first Spurs encounter was more pit bull, but I'm also a backslapping, a glad-handing politician. And look, we need to show the Spurs love. We need to show them that we want to keep them here. And I think it would be a great opportunity for you and them to, just kind of talk a little bit more about what they're looking to do. I think that's a healthy thing.
I do too, and I think that's all fans want. I think a little transparency with the fans would help ease some of the tensions that some of the fans have, because we hear from them all the time, and a lot of them were very skeptical even after that letter came out. So I think a little
made us more skeptical.
Yeah, so I think a little transparency. All right, Tommy, on a little softer or brighter note, are you lighting candles tonight for the draft lottery? Are you any superstitions that you have?
I'm not even kidding. I told Bobby, their general counsel, last week, I said, I'm lighting my Spurs candle. And he said, well, Commissioner, you're very good at the burning of candles. Your prayers often happen. So I'm going to go. But too bad the Adoration Chapel at St. Anthony Catholic Church is closed. I go over there and pray right now. But, yeah, we got a 1 in 5, 20% chance of getting a top 4 draft. So, man, that would be fantastic. And, wow, happy days. I hope we'll be here again.
We will find out. Spurs already got 1 win today. Can they make it 2 with the draft lottery a little bit later on tonight? You know, Tommy, on this show, we stay away from politics. That's one of the rules, unless, of course, it directly affects sports. And we appreciate you taking the time to come on and give us some insights,
some transparency
that we all want to know answers and what's the plan. I mean, it does feel like I've said many times, I don't think the Spurs are going anywhere right now, but man, this feels like they're laying the groundwork for when they ask for a new building, that's going to be there. And you shed a lot of light on that today, Tommy. Do appreciate you taking the time on what is, I know, a busy day for you.
Well, let me just, as we close, just say that it was an industrious city councilman, Mario Salas, who made a deal with Cindy Taylor Cryer and the Spurs to keep, the Spurs on the east side from, and take them from Hemisphere. And I think it's going to take leadership again to come together and make sure that we keep our Spurs in San Antonio. So the playbook is not fully written, but we're all going to work together to try to do the right thing.
County Commissioner, Tommy. Precinct 4, Tommy Calvert. Tommy, appreciate the time. We'll talk soon.
Take care, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, appreciate it. Tommy Calvert joining us here on the Blitz. You heard from Tommy. Let's hear from you. The Kia Bossa Bacon phone lines are open, 210-656-ESPN, 656-3776. On Twitter, he is at Joe Reinagle 210. You can tweet at me at Jason Minix.
How refreshing it is when you ask somebody that's in the know a question and they answer you, and they tell you the truth and tell you how it is. And I've always been that. I think you're the same way, and a lot of the listeners are as well. Look, we can handle any kind of news. Just be honest with us, be transparent with us. And I think that's what scares people sometimes when the Spurs just simply aren't. And so I appreciate Tommy today. That was great.
And again, it is the Spurs way. None of us are surprised that the Spurs weren't more forthcoming. But there are certain things that maybe you got to get out of your comfort zone. Peter J. Holt, maybe you're not a man comfortable doing interviews. I get it. But sometimes you have to come out of your comfort zone. Or at the very least, let RC be the spokesperson.
Yeah.
He's not the...
he's good.
He's good, but I never find RC is very comfortable in having to do it. He's never going to be one that volunteers, say, hey, you know what? I want to, like Jerry Jones, I want to do radio today. Line them up, boys.
That's right.
I mean, that's not going to be RC. I get that, but RC can do it. Somebody. But I do feel like with all the questions right now, we do need to hear from Peter J. Holt. Whether he comes on this show, whether he goes on R&R in the morning, if he sat down for a Sunday piece with Greg Simmons or Don Harris, sit down with Mike Finger and Jeff McDonald. At somebody, let somebody that asks questions for a living ask questions, not a statement that was read by 5 PR people and 2 lawyers before it goes out. I need to hear from you. You can hear the sincerity. You can, I mean, there is just something that reassures you when you hear from somebody, but every request, everyone, appreciate the opportunity, but we'll pass.
Right. At some point in time, you got to figure it's got to happen, right? I mean, you would think, although I've been waiting about 25 years. So
I mean, that's it. I mean, there you go. I mean, somebody that isn't Spurs.com.
When it comes to something like this, when it's a player decision, when it's something like that, okay, I get that. But when it's something like this, where people in this city feel like you're about to pack up and leave, that's a different thing. And I think you need and you owe it to the fans to calm their nerves.
More so than the heartfelt statement.
Yes.
Although it was a nice letter.
It was a great letter.
It was a nice
letter.
Talking
tacos and everything.
And again, according to Tommy Calvert, they have not had talks yet
Nope.
about a new building, but there is a lot of talk about trying to build up that area. Well, you got to believe that, and obviously Tommy is fighting for his area.
Absolutely.
And he should be.
And he's doing a great job.
That's what you want. But at the same time, before you start building up that area, you got to, I don't know, sign them to a new lease.
Make sure
they
that they're there for a while.
They got 10 years left on that lease.
Yeah, because it might take about 5 of those 10 to get that place where it's supposed to be. So, but that was a great story. So now I kind of understand why it hasn't happened yet. He told us that story. That's great. Transparency is a great thing.
Good stuff.